Hello and welcome to this pre-recorded event for Feedback on June 2015, Unit 3, 6RM0301. To help you get the most out of this feedback, you will need a copy of the 2015 mark scheme and question paper for 6RM0301, as we will refer to them during the session. There are a number of issues that teachers can address which become clear through the written responses of the candidates each year. The main aims of today's event are to look through some examples, highlight the salient points, and develop a number of strategies which you can use in the classroom as part of your preparation sessions and throughout the course with your students. This is an important slide as it holds the key to why pupils may underachieve in certain questions. In order to deliver a full education in D&T, it is critical that all students are taught the entire specification during the course. This can be done as standalone units, lessons, as an integrated part of the coursework, or a combination of both. This decision is obviously based on individual circumstances or time, candidate ability, and teacher expertise. It is also important to read and understand the context parts of each section of the specification, as they are the guideline to the content that can be examined. At A-level, it is important to understand that knowledge recall alone is insufficient to be able to access the higher grades. Candidates should be taught knowledge in such a way that they are able to apply the knowledge to a range of contexts. The list shows a few of the more common strengths shown by candidates this year. What is particularly pleasing is that the number of completely blank answers seems to be decreasing each year. Obviously, centres are preparing candidates more thoroughly each year. Bullet point 1. Educated guesses can be an important part of improving a candidate's mark. If a candidate is not exactly sure, then a few notes and a bit of thought can often result in some marks being scored. BP 2. Concise is great. There are too many answers seen which have clearly no planning and consequently go round and round, repeating the same answer or two and scoring no more marks. BP 3. Even essay-based questions like Q1B, 3A, 5, 6A, and 7 from the 2015 paper can be answered using bullet points, but it should be noted that full sentences using subject-specific language should be used, and not just single words or a cursory phrase. BP 4. A clipped area is an area predetermined for each individual question that will be scanned for marking. It is therefore really important that candidates realise that writing in margins, or on the blank pages, means their work is not seen by the examiners. If a candidate makes a mistake and wants to rewrite their answer, then this is the time to use a separate sheet of paper which has to be attached to the answer booklet. BP 4 and BP 5. These are pleasing trends. The list shows a few of the more common weaknesses shown by candidates this year. BP 1. Every year examiners find some answers that are almost totally incomprehensible, and although they do their very best, sometimes it is not possible to fully understand the text, but every effort is made to award the candidate a correct score. BP 2. This is a common fault, and if candidates would just take a minute to fully understand what they are being asked to do, then there is a good chance they would score higher marks. Very often, answers are seen which are clearly based on the questions set, but miss the nuance. For example, a question about the advantages of a topic elicit answers which include disadvantages, as the candidate has quickly read the question and just regurgitated everything they know. BP3. The next few slides explain the examination terminology in greater detail, and it is important that these words are part of the taught preparation for the exam, as they are there to guide the candidates. BP4. A common result of the problems mentioned in BP2 are extra pages, which result in the booklet not being able to be scanned in the normal way. I would say that the majority of extra sheets tend to score no extra marks. BP5. Candidates often write a conclusion, which is not necessary on any of the questions, which is a general summary of what they have already written and which just repeats the points already made. The next few slides show the trigger words used in the writing of questions and their meanings. There are also some example answers from previous years to help explain the use of the trigger words. You may want to pause the presentation in order to read through each explanation and example. This slide shows a give example answer. There are 2 points given, although only one of them is correct. Although the wording is not ideal, there is enough knowledge shown to be able to award the mark. This slide shows a state example answer. A single correct sentence is sufficient to score the mark. You may want to pause the presentation in order to read through each explanation and example. This slide shows an example answer which scored 6 out of 6 for the following reasons. There are 3 correct points made, ticks 1, 3 and 5, each followed by a linked example, ticks 2, 4 and 6. This slide shows an example answer which scored 4 out of 4 for the following reasons. 4 correct points from the mark scheme are given. It is important to note that outline questions can be individual points or linked pairs of points. For example, the answer shown above has 4 separate spaces for answers, but it could just have a series of lines, allowing the candidate to answer in a paragraph-style response. In this case, an answer like number 2, shown on the screen, could be in a linked style and read something like, "It can be viewed from 360 degrees, 1 mark, so that a fuller understanding of the product can be conveyed to the viewer, 1 mark." This slide shows an example answer which scored 6 out of 6 for the following reasons. The first answer is a single point and scores 1 mark. The second answer is a point, 1 mark, with a valid result, 1 mark. The third answer has a point, 1 mark, high demand, with 2 linked points, 1 mark each. Therefore 24/7, and supply is continuous. Please note that it is perfectly acceptable not to have to make the points in 3 pairs. There is only 1 point in response 1, 2 points in response 2, and 3 points in response 3, which equals 6 marks. This slide shows an example answer which scored 3 out of 3 for the following reasons. 2 marks are scored for the linked point of being hard and therefore not easy to work, and 1 mark for they weaken the wood. You may want to pause the presentation in order to read through each explanation and example. This slide shows part of an example answer which scored 8 out of 8. There is a need in this type of question to pose both sides of an argument. The candidate has clearly done this, using sufficient examples to score maximum marks. The use of a word like however helps candidates focus, or remember, to give a counter-argument and is a useful tip to pass on to your students. This slide shows a list of words which may help candidates structure their answers. With answers which require linked points, words like these automatically prompt the candidate to complete a two-part answer. Without such words, many answers we see only score 1 mark from each of the 2 marks available. It is important for those who are not involved in the examination process to get a feel for how the mark scheme is structured and applied in order to give all candidates the best chance of scoring the highest grade they can. The next few slides are a few examples from this series, 2015 A2 paper. You will need a copy of the mark scheme in front of you. It is really important to familiarise yourself with all the bullet points and note those which are very similar but have crucial differences. You may want to pause the presentation for each example in order to give yourself time to familiarise yourself with the mark scheme and read the candidate's response carefully. Once you've completed each example, I will show you where the marks for that item were awarded. For the first example, the mark scheme for Q1B is shown here. As you can see, there are numerous slashes used in the mark scheme. These are used to mean either raw materials or parts or waste, etc. Care must be taken not to double award, that is, give a mark for an answer which is correct, but comes from a part of the mark scheme which has already been credited. Please read through the mark scheme for Q1B carefully, as this will be the first example you will be required to mark as part of the next activity. This also shows you how hard some examples are to read or decipher, as this is exactly what the examiners would see, as it is a screen dump of the marking pane used in ePen. You should refer to Q1B in the mark scheme and mark this out of a maximum of 8 marks. Please note down which bullet points you have awarded marks for, as this will help you to compare your marking with the official mark awarded. For example, if you think BP 2, 3, 6 and 8 are correct, then note them down and total up the final mark, for example, equals 4 marks. When you have marked the item and have a total, please restart the presentation. This slide shows the bullet points which were awarded for this answer. Compare them to your own answers. You should refer to Q2A in the mark scheme and mark this out of a maximum of 6 marks. Again, please note down which bullet points you have awarded marks for, as this will help you compare your marking with the official mark awarded. This slide shows the bullet points which were awarded for this answer. Compare them to your own answers. You should refer to Q3B in the mark scheme and mark this out of a maximum of 4 marks. Again, please note down which bullet points you have awarded marks for, as this will help you compare your marking with the official mark awarded. This slide shows the bullet points which were awarded for this answer. Compare them to your own answers. You should refer to Q4B in the mark scheme and mark this out of a maximum of 4 marks. Again, please note down which bullet points you have awarded marks for, as this will help you compare your marking with the official mark awarded. This slide shows the bullet points which were awarded for this answer. Compare them to your own answers. You should refer to Q6A in the mark scheme and mark this out of a maximum of 4 marks. Again, please note down which bullet points you have awarded marks for, as this will help you compare your marking with the official mark awarded. This slide shows the bullet points which were awarded for this answer. Compare them to your own answers. This question elicited a number of good responses. This specific response scored 7 out of 8. The candidate has clearly differentiated their answers by using bullet points, thus structuring the answer and avoiding repetition. This response scored 4 out of 8 for the following. 1. Reduces waste, BP2, 1 mark. 2. Only order supply when it's needed, BP1, 1 mark. 3. Save potential storage costs, BP3, 1 mark. 4. As requested by consumers, BP8, 1 mark. The rest of the first paragraph is a series of repeat answers. The final paragraph loses focus on the question as it covers reasons why a company would not use JIT. This slide gives a basic summary of Q1B. This question was very well answered in general, with many candidates being able to give more than the required 6 correct answers. This specific response scored 6 out of 6 for the following. 1. Grow faster, BP7, 1 mark. 2. Therefore more produced and sold, BP8, 1 mark. 3. Different colours, BP11, 1 mark. 4. Grow where didn't before, BP17, 1 mark. 5. Fewer imperfections, BP2, 1 mark. Therefore more structural strength, BP10, 1 mark. Even though this answer is a therefore from the previous answer, it hits BP10 and is a correct result of the previous answer. This response scored 2 out of 6 for the following. 1. No not, BP2, 1 mark. 2. More durable, BP14, 1 mark. Long-lasting is a repeat of BP14. This slide gives a basic summary of Q2A. Generally, this question did not elicit many full mark answers. However, many candidates scored well by planning their answers and focusing them on the specifics of the question. This specific response scored 5 out of 6 for the following. 1. Cheaper labour, BP1, 1 mark. 2. More people are prepared for lower wages, BP2, 1 mark. The phrase more people is enough to suggest a greater availability. Legislation less strict. This is too vague, as it could fit BP6, BP7 and BP8. 3. Land is cheaper, BP4, 1 mark. 4. Cheaper resources, raw materials, BP9, 1 mark. 5. No need to pay import tax, BP8, 1 mark. This response scored 2 out of 6 for the following. 1. Reduces manufacturing costs, BP1, 1 mark. 2. Factories close to raw materials, BP5, 1 mark. The rest of the answer is just repeating consequences of this proximity. The final sentence is too vague for BP3. This slide gives a basic summary of Q3A. On the whole, this question was not well answered, as many candidates just described the looks of the chair without reference to the philosophy mentioned in the question. This specific response scored 4 out of 4 for the following. 1. Man-made materials, BP2, 1 mark. 2. Unnecessary ornate decorations were removed, BP8, 1 mark. This shows sufficient knowledge that the over-decoration was removed in favour of clean lines. Machine processes became more favourable is a little too vague for BP7, but answer 4 clearly hits this bullet point. 3. Inspired a design that was more mass-producible, BP5, 1 mark. 4. Machine-stitched and machine-bent, BP7, 1 mark. This response scored 2 out of 4 for the following. 1. The stand on the bottom would not originally have been done, but with extrusion, a machine operation, it could be completed. BP7, 1 mark. This is a somewhat vague answer, but there is enough understanding of mechanical techniques being used. 2. It can also produce the product quicker and allow for mass production. This is too vague, as there is not enough understanding to show the product is designed for mass production. BP5. This point would have scored a point for BP7, but that has already been credited in the previous answer. This slide gives a basic summary of Q4B. This slide shows some common issues. This slide shows some tips on examination technique. This slide shows some tips on examination technique.